It was a typical Manhattan morning, busy, bustling, full of the energy that makes this city so unique. People swarming the streets, grabbing their overpriced lattes, rushing to work. But inside Saw Lux Cafe Saw, the world was a little different. It wasn't just about the coffee, it was about the people who drank it. It was about wealth, status, and power. The kind of power that could make someone feel like they were above the rest. The kind of power that could make you believe that you were better than someone else just because you had money, a brand new suit, and a designer watch. In the midst of all this, there was Saw Calla Monroe Saw. Now, Calla wasn't your typical Manhattanite. She was a waitress, not exactly the kind of person the regulars here cared much for. She didn't fit in with the people who sipped champagne with their croissants and read the latest issue of Vogue as if it was some sacred text. Calla was thin, with a plain ponytail and a faded apron that didn't belong in this pristine environment. Yet, there was something about her. Maybe it was the way she carried herself, quietly efficient, almost invisible behind the marble counters and gold-plated fixtures. Maybe it was the way she did her job, always on time, always professional. But on this particular morning, Calla would find herself in the kind of situation she could never have predicted. The morning had started like any other. Calla was behind the counter, her hands moving quickly as she prepared coffee, steamed milk, and lattes. But it was clear that Marcus Saw, the cafe owner, was already in a bad mood. He was tall, blonde, and every bit the kind of rich guy who inherited everything but still thought he'd earned it. Standing by the window, he scanned the room with the kind of smug satisfaction that only someone born into Priv could muster. He looked over his domain like a king surveying his kingdom. But Calla, well, to Marcus, she was just another cog in the machine. Another person to serve him, another person who didn't matter beyond that. The morning rush was coming in, as expected. The rich customers, the ones who had all the right names, walked in one by one, making their way to their reserved tables, eager to show off their wealth. That was when Victoria Sterling strutted through the door. Victoria was the kind of woman who thought her very presence was enough to intimidate others. She wore pink Chanel, a face frozen from too many Botox shots, and a Hermes bag that screamed wealth. She was always looking down on people, even if she didn't know it. But today, she was out for something else, entertainment. And who better to entertain her than the poor waitress? It started with an innocent enough mistake, something most people would have shrugged off. Calla took too long to prepare Marcus's espresso, but Marcus didn't let it go. He slammed his fist on the counter, making every customer in the cafe turn their heads. "Are you stupid or just incredibly lazy?" he bellowed. "My time is worth more than your entire existence." The customers watched, some with smirks, others with their phones out, recording every moment like it was a show. Calla's face burned with humiliation, but she didn't respond. She quietly apologized, though nothing she could say would ever make the situation right. Victoria, of course, wasn't about to let that go. She knocked over Calla's tray on purpose, sending pastries and coffee crashing to the floor. "Oops," she said with a sickening sweetness, pulling out her phone to film. "Clumsy hands just run in your class, don't they?" The laughter echoed through the cafe, and Calla, she just stood there, frantically cleaning up the mess while Victoria gleefully streamed it live for thousands of people to see. It didn't stop there. Marcus, who was enjoying the spectacle, came up with another cruel idea. He tossed some napkins on the floor and told Calla to crawl under the tables to get them. "Down on your hands and knees where you belong," he commanded. And the customers, they ate it up. They loved it. Watching someone with less power, less money, someone beneath them, do their bidding. Victoria, with her phone still rolling, narrated the scene to her growing audience, her voice laced with malice. The live comments flooded in with laughing emojis, people celebrating the cruelty they were witnessing. Calla, though? Calla wasn't just some poor waitress. Beneath her meek exterior, there was something far more complex. Something that had seen real darkness, had survived it. Something that had learned not just how to endure, but how to become stronger for it. And then, something happened. Something that changed everything. Outside, a black Mercedes came screeching to a halt. The crowd didn't notice at first, too busy enjoying the misery of someone else. But then, chaos. An elderly man in a wheelchair had been struck by the car, and with him was Rex his Ser VYC dog. The man, Tom Rodriguez was 68, a former Marine who had given everything to his country. Now, he was lying motionless on the sidewalk, his wheelchair twisted and broken. Rex was beside him, bleeding from his leg. Calla didn't hesitate. She dropped everything and ran outside, her movements no longer those of a humble waitress, but someone who knew exactly what to do. She knelt beside Tom, assessing his injuries with the calm precision of a medic. Her hands moved quickly, checking his pulse, stabilizing his breathing. And then she turned to Rex, applying pressure to his wound with the practiced ease of someone who had seen battlefields before. Marcus, of course, didn't care. He stormed out of the cafe furious. "Get inside now," he shouted, his voice cracking with rage. "I don't pay you to play doctor in the street." Victoria followed close behind, her phone already recording, thinking this was just another chance to humiliate Calla. "Look at this fake hero act," she said with a laugh. "She really thinks she's some kind of medical professional." But Calla didn't stop. She kept working, her focus entirely on Tom and Rex. Her hands moved with confidence, her voice steady as she reassured them both. But that was when Tom spoke. "That bandaging technique," he whispered, his voice weak but sharp. "Where did you learn it?" Calla hesitated for a moment. She knew that if she told him, everything would change. But she couldn't lie. She muttered something about online videos, but Tom's eyes weren't fooled. "I've seen that before. In Iraq," he said. His eyes widened as he recognized what Calla had done. "You were military." Marcus, sensing an opportunity for more drama, tried to seize on Tom's words. "Oh, perfect," he said, laughing. "Now the homeless vet thinks our waitress is some kind of secret soldier." But Tom wasn't finished. He looked at Calla with a piercing gaze. "What unit were you with?" The room fell silent. Calla, realizing the cover she had worked so hard to maintain was slipping, nearly spoke but caught herself. The words nearly escaped her. 3rd Infantry. Before she could stop herself, the truth was out. Tom's eyes went wide with recognition. "Holy hell, you're real military." That's when everything changed. Tom, despite his pain, grabbed his phone and made a call, one that would turn this whole situation on its head. Back in Washington, SAW General Patricia Hayes SAW picked up the phone. When she heard Tom's voice, something clicked. "Rodriguez, you're supposed to be retired, not calling emergency lines about waitresses," she said, but she was already pulling up classified files. The name SAW Calla Monroe SAW was all it took to make her pause. Calla was not just a waitress. She had been a special forces trainer, a hero. And so, the military machine kicked into gear. Minutes later, SAW Marines SAW stormed the cafe. The roar of their vehicles made the expensive glass doors shudder as they exploded into the cafe with military precision. The socialites, who moments ago had laughed at Calla's humiliation, were now trembling as Marines shouted for them to get on the ground. Captain SAW Daniel Morrison SAW led the operation, and when he turned to Calla, he addressed her with the respect she deserved. "Sergeant Monroe," he said, his voice calm but filled with authority. The room fell silent. No one could believe what they were witnessing. Marcus, his face as pale as a ghost, stammered in disbelief. "This is some kind of mistake," he said, his voice cracking. But Calla, standing tall, wasn't finished. She addressed the crowd, her voice strong and steady. "You threw money at me like I was trash," she said, her words cutting through the tension. "You laughed when I tried to help a wounded veteran and his dog. You treated my service like it was something to be ashamed of. You were wrong." The crowd, once full of cruel laughter, was now silenced. The revelation that Calla Monroe was a decorated military hero shattered the illusion of superiority that had governed their lives. It didn't stop there. Marcus lost everything: his business, his reputation, his wealth. SAW Victoria SAW's social media empire crumbled as viewers turned on her, exposing her cruelty. And SAW Lux Cafe SAW? Well, it was no longer a symbol of privy leg. It became SAW Heroes Haven SAW, a community center for veterans, led by someone who had been through hell and come out stronger for it. As for Calla, she had finally found her true purpose.